Hello, and welcome to our newest webinar in our Radiation Safety and Wellness webinar series, Hands-Free Imaging in Veterinary Practice. My guest today is Julia Bitan, RVT. Julia is going to speak about the Hands-Free X-rays initiative she started in 2016 to address concerns for radiation protection in veterinary medicine. Thank you for being here with us today, Julia. The final 20 minutes of today's webinar will be a movement break led by Charlemagne Wong of Ji Hong Tai Chi and Qigong in Richmond Hill, Ontario. This school is part of the Ji Hong Tai Chi College, which was founded in 1988 and is a large organization with campuses located primarily in Canada, China, and a few other locations. The schools are all dedicated to teaching the art of Tai Chi with decades worth of accumulated experience and research to define and design a modern and advanced set of teaching methods. Let's take a moment to go over the functionality of the Zoom meeting. We ask that during the presentation portion that the audio and video be from the presenters only. We have found that although you can access the audio through the computer or telephone, the quality of sound tends to be better when listening from a computer. There is a chat feature where people can discuss. If you would like, take a moment now to say hello and where you're from. If you have questions arriving from the content, please type them into the Zoom Q&A. The Q&A area is set up to allow attendees to upvote and comment on questions. As the webinar is only 40 minutes in length and is immediately followed by our wellness session, time may not permit for us to answer them during the webinar. The answers will be posted on our website, along with a link to the video recording and a copy of the slides. These can be found under Education Webinars. I'll be sending a confirmation of attendance email after the webinar and will include a link to the page with that communication. I will also include the topics covered and the length of the time spent in the webinar, as some people have requested this to send to their professional association. Lastly, I have automatic closed captioning enabled in the slide presentation. If they're being blocked by your Zoom controls, you should be able to select a different way to view the webinar in Zoom, which makes them easier to see. Just looking, the closed captioning may not be functioning right now, so I apologize for that. Today we'll be discussing hands-free imaging in veterinary radiology. We will start with a short background presentation covering X-rays, ionizing radiation, the linear non-threshold theory, the ALARA principle, the radiation protection principles for external radiation protection, and the components of the X-ray beam. Where appropriate, references will be made to previous webinars which go into more detail on these topics. We will then have the interview and question and answer session with our guest, Julia Bitan. X-rays are high-energy electromagnetic radiation which can be emitted when high-speed electrons interact with matter. Humans have created X-ray equipment which contain X-ray tubes, inside which electrons are accelerated towards a target called the anode, by means of high voltage. The kinetic energy of the electrons is converted into heat and electromagnetic radiation, including X-rays. Once created, X-rays travel out from the X-ray tube and can interact with matter. Due to its high energy, X-ray radiation has the potential to remove electrons from their orbitals around neutral atoms or molecules. The name for a charged particle is an ion. When electrons are removed from a neutral atom or molecule, it results in the creation of an ion pair, the electron that is ejected and the remaining positive ion. This process is called ionization. So since X-rays can remove electrons from atoms, they are a form of ionizing radiation. The International Agency on Research on Cancer, IARC, lists ionizing radiation as a group 1 carcinogenic to humans. For more information on ionizing radiation, please see our previous webinars, Understanding Radiation and Health Effects of Exposure to Radiation. In Canada and other countries which follow the recommendations of the International Commission on Radiological Protection, or ICRP, the assumed relationship between the radiation dose received and the risk of cancer is called the linear non-threshold, or LNT model. This model assumes a linear response based on data from populations which have received much larger doses than what we receive occupationally in Canada. For example, the atomic bomb survivors. We have a previous webinar on regulatory bodies and international agencies for those who want to know more about the work of IARC and the ICRP. One thing about the linear non-threshold model to understand is that the radiation doses that were used to develop it are much higher, but we don't have populations to look at the results for down at these lower numbers. So it's assumed that it's a straight line down to no additional dose beyond background. Radiation protection practices based on the LNT require that workplaces keep radiation doses as low as reasonably achievable, or ALARA. It is not acceptable to just keep doses below regulatory limits. X-ray equipment is an external source of radiation. To reduce dose from external sources of radiation, we use the radiation protection principles of time, distance, and shielding. Lower the amount of time being exposed to radiation, increase the distance between the person and the source of radiation, and use appropriate shielding. Because of how X-rays interact with matter, it is not possible to fully shield for the X-rays created. So there will be small amounts of leakage X-rays which come through the shielding around the X-ray tube, represented in green. In veterinary and many types of radiology, there is an unshielded area where the X-rays being used for imaging or the primary beam are allowed to escape. Additional shielding, called a collimator, is used to shape the primary beam, represented with black dashed lines, in order to direct it to the area of interest. When the primary beam interacts with the material, some of it will pass through and reach the imager. Some of its energy will be absorbed into the veterinary patient, and some of it will be scattered in random directions, represented in orange. The primary beam, the secondary scatter radiation, and leakage radiation are all ionizing and must be considered when following the radiation protection principles. So with that short introduction to the concepts we'll be discussing today, I'm pleased to welcome today's interview guest, Julia Bitan, RVT. Julia is the founder of the Hands-Free Veterinary Radiography Initiative. This initiative was created to promote radiation safety awareness in the veterinary workplace with the goal of reducing occupational radiation exposure of veterinary personnel through a combination of hands-free techniques, workshops, innovative restraint devices, and industry educational resources. Resources and information about their workshops and products can be found at handsfreeexrays.com, and that's X-rays without the dash. Welcome, Julia. We're very glad to have you here. I can't tell if you're on camera yet or not. Okay, you are. Great. So I've given a bit of background into ionizing radiation and radiation protection. Many people have experienced getting X-rays in dental, chiropractic, or medical facilities. Veterinary radiology has challenges specific to it. Do you mind talking about what aspects of veterinary radiology make it unique in terms of radiation dose to technicians?
Yes, so we can put the first slide, Lynn, just has a picture. X-rays is, I would say, the number one diagnostic tool used in veterinary medicine. It's very quick, and it's a great tool to help diagnose our patients when they're coming in because they're not feeling well. As you can see in the picture, we have two people holding the patient down because we can't really tell our dogs or cats just stay like this or like this on your back, just don't move for a couple of seconds while we take your x-rays. We have to either hold them physically or sedate them. But I would say 90% of hospitals you will see this kind of procedure done when we're taking x-rays. One person holding the front legs, one person holding the back legs. And the main issue when practicing like this for many, many years, I mean, I've been an RVT since 2008, and I've done x-rays this way for 10 years, almost 10 years. So That was just the go-to. And when we manually restrain our patients, we stay very, very close to the X-ray source. It's also a very small part of the job, veterinary medicine. We do so much. We see appointments, we do blood, we do surgeries, we do pharmacy. It's such a vast profession. Amazing. I love this. But X-rays is a very small part of the job, and it's very easy to not think about radiation safety and just think about getting that image so you can keep on going with the other stuff that you have to do for today. Also, when using your hands to hold limbs, as you can see in this picture here, sometimes it's not always practical or easy to correctly hold them, especially if you think of a little kitten, small dogs. It's very hard, and often, and I'm to blame with that as well. I wouldn't wear gloves. I would just use them to cover my hands without really realizing that it's not great. Also, I found in my experience, there wasn't enough radiation safety awareness provided to us, whether in school or government support. I just found that walking into X-ray room, you would often see a bare X-ray. There wasn't really educational anything reminding staff that radiation is dangerous, has to be respected, and we need to be more respectful to radiation safety.
Yeah, very good points. I think like when I started doing the training and things, like I hadn't really considered before that just how different it is for veterinary techs than most other radiologists, assistants. So how has the use of X-ray in veterinary practice changed over time? And how has this impacted the work done by vet techs?
So when I started, we had analog. I don't know if anybody who's watching right now remembers the time that we had to take the image, go into a dark room, dip, and then rinse, and then you have kind of like your break for 10 minutes in a little dark room so you can unwind. It took much longer to process images. So I would say we didn't take that many because we definitely took X-rays, but it wasn't as frequent as it is now with digital. Also, the chemicals were expensive, film was expensive. It was just a much bigger production to do X-rays and develop the X-rays mostly. When my hospital purchased their first digital system, it was like night and day. It's like pressing a button and you have a picture on the screen. It was like
Oh, I lost your sound, Julia. You went muted.
oh,
there you go. Yeah. So you had said you pushed a button and it was
basically push a
I think
button.
you were gonna say it was like magic.
It resembles like a smartphone picture. So we started doing a lot more because the process was so much faster. And also I found that we weren't as meticulous about positioning because it was so quick to see it. We weren't taking that much time to make sure that we have all the anatomy, that the patient is not rotated, that everything is perfect. It was just, okay, it just takes a second, worst case, we'll take another. That was kind of the mindset that we switched to once we went to digital. Also for doctors, it became much easier to sell it to clients because you get the results so much faster. So you have a vomiting patient, you're not sure what's going on. Let's just take an X-ray, see what's going on. It just, I would say like we started doing 5 X-ray. Like we basically increased our X-ray usage exponentially once we changed to digital. And as a result, I would say everyone in my clinic at the time saw a spike in the dosimeter readings. So there was definitely an effect on how much radiation we were getting exposed to as well when we changed to digital.
Yeah, you can see that just in our own, for people that are my age. You went from taking just pictures when you were it wasn't worth wasting the film, right? And now we take pictures of everything.
Had to rethink it, yeah.
Yeah, without really thinking, but there's not that dose of ionizing radiation that goes along with it. So what do we mean, or what do you mean when we're saying hands-free imaging?
So hands-free, just like it sounds, basically, instead of having two people hold the dog, one person front, one person back, we replace the worker's hands with positioning devices. That allows the workers to take a step back or leave the room if possible, and basically not be so close to the X-ray source when we actually press that exposure button.
When did you start being interested in hands-free imaging? And can you give a bit of history of the initiative you founded?
So like I mentioned before, I've been in RVT since 2008, long time ago. And hand holding, I would say, was the norm. It was just what everybody did, and that's what we did. We didn't really think about doing it differently. It was just the way it was done. Nobody really loved it, but I was in my early 20s. I thought about, I'm doing an amazing job. I want to make the doctor happy and give them great images, like great x-rays to review. And when I was in my clinic, one of the doctors actually developed a type of cancer that is associated with a radiation exposure. Now, there was no way to prove that her work had anything to do with it, because we have radiation everywhere. There's genetics involved. She flies to Florida twice a year. She's on the phone. We have radiation all around us. But that was my little bug, because after she got that, and also it was in her mouth, so that was the one area that is not protected when we hold for x-rays. We protect our organs, our thyroid, and our hands, and our head is generally exposed. So she stopped taking x-rays and I continued. And then it just didn't logically make sense for me that I'm continuing, but she's not, so I started doing research to think, okay, how can I still get the same results, but increase my distance a little bit so I'm not getting as much exposure, because I became a bit more afraid of it at the time. And I found that there wasn't much options available to me except for sedation. Sedation has always been there, but there are issues with sedating every single x-ray patient, because it's extra cost for the client, something extra to talk about with the client when they're already dealing with a sick furry family member. And I wasn't really able to find anything else until I started going to veterinary conferences. Basically, I just went to conferences, and every single person I could talk to, I asked, do you know of any solutions? Do you know if other people feel like me? And the more I spoke about this issue, the more I realized there's so many people that feel exactly like me. And I released a survey with the OAVT, the Ontario Association of Veterinary Technician Journal. And one of the questions was, are you seeking alternatives to hand holding of animals 100% of the time? And 90% said yes. Also, another key factor that I discovered in that survey is that there's over 80% of RVTs are admitted not wearing their gloves 100% of the time, which was, red alert. And again, I've been there, I understand. But when looking at regulations where it states we have to wear gloves, we can't just drape them, or we can't use our bare hands when manually restraining, it just clicked that there's a problem and there is not any solution out there. Again, aside from sedating, but not many clinics were sedating at the time. My hospital wasn't doing it. They didn't want to. It was a big change to go to. And then slowly I discovered that there are a handful of hospitals in Toronto, that's where I'm from, that are 100% hands-free. So I went to these hospitals. I kind of shadowed the techs to see what they're doing different. Are they sedating everyone? And once I actually saw how it's done, I was shocked. It's so easy. It's just the mindset of this is just the way we do it. And sometimes we sedate, but most of the time we don't. and it's the skill set. So I partnered with a few RVTs who have, at the time they had like 8 years of experience working just with hands-free approach, never holding unless absolutely necessary, but very, very rarely. And we kind of created this program that says, okay, there's this skill. With that kind of experience, you can show it's doable. Why not share this knowledge with other hospitals and see if we can switch that change? Because change is big, and this was a huge change at the time. So we just slowly started doing training programs with clinics. I also got some government support. I was part of the Schulich, the business school incubator program. So that was a huge help for me, how to get something like a project like this started. And at the end of the day, at the end of the goal, we've done workshops with, this says 400, probably past 500 right now. And now do Europe, Middle East, I had China, we're mostly doing Canada and US and North America, but it's spreading, and it's being proven that it's doable, and this is the way that veterinary medicine should go to, hands-free.
That's just amazing. And your manufacturing of your tools and everything is here in Canada, you had mentioned to me before.
So when part of the, like I said, the whole concept of hands-free is replacing our hands with positioning devices, and there is nobody in Canada that I could find that was manufacturing these positioning devices. So we just decided, why not do it ourselves? So we started making it, and now we have a whole line of, for the most part, very basic positioning devices. The goal is just to keep the patient comfortable. And yeah, we make everything locally here in Toronto and Ontario, and we ship it all everywhere.
That's great. So how does this ALARA principle come into play with the hands-free imaging?
So it's right there. So ALARA stands for as low as reasonably achievable. And we do this by increasing our distance, wearing proper shielding like lead PPE, and less time spent on taking x-rays or lower settings. With hands-free, the focus is mainly on the distance, because with replacing our hands with positioning devices, the operator or the worker can take a step back or leave the room if possible. And the main thing with ALARA, it's as last word, as it's reasonably achievable. With doing hands-free, once the skill is confidently learned, it's extremely achievable. And this is what I'm really pushing for, that hands-free is much easier than most people think. So it's very, very achievable. And yeah.
So isn't it good enough for technicians just to wear their lead PPE, in particular their gloves?
PPE is great. But sometimes people think that this is my magic something. I'm going to wear this and I'm going to be forever protected. There are body parts that are not protected. Like I mentioned, the head is not protected. Also, lead PPE does not protect you from primary beam. It's only designed to protect from scatter. And that picture that you see with the little stuffed dog and the hand holding the limb, that hand is in the primary beam. And I have done this very often, because sometimes it's really hard depending on body part and on the patient if they're struggling. So PPE, in my opinion, is not a replacement. It's great, and if you are in the room, you have to wear it. It's mandatory part of the job, but it's not the solution. The solution is to increase our distance and just not be there if we don't have to.
Yes. So how does being hands-free work?
How it works. It's a change. Change is hard. So basically the idea is you combine proper technique with the right positioning tools, and you allow your patient to be comfortable. The most essential part of hands-free radiography is patient comfort. If they are uncomfortable, they will not stay. They will be struggling, they will be shaking, they will want to get up. So the main thing to focus on is look at your patient, assess your patient, and every patient is different, age, why they're getting the x-rays, body shape, body type. It's really important to find the right technique that's fit for that specific patient, that specific case, and make sure that they stay comfortable. Again, with hands-free, doesn't take 15 minutes to take an x-ray. Like most exposures, they're 0.1 seconds. It's a very quick exposure. It happens very quick. So they don't have to stay there for a long time. The idea is just positioning them comfortably, take a few steps back, expose, and you're right back with your patient. Oftentimes we say even staying in the room is great. You wear your lead PPE. It's just about increasing the distance. It's reducing or eliminating the actual need to be so close to that x-ray table.
Yeah, the picture kind of gives a good idea of what it might look like, but it's different for different size animals, I assume.
Yeah, just people assume often that hands-free means that the patient is alone in the room and they go have some coffee in the parking lot. It's not. It's all about being able. I'm just gonna quickly take care of this. So the goal is just to be able to increase your distance in that 1 second of exposure.
Great.
It's very quick.
And speaking with veterinary practices who have gone hands-free, what do they like about it?
Well, the most obvious one is reduce exposure to staff. I don't know if we're able to show, I just put a quick example of hands-free, just to show how easy it is and how quick it is also. So again, the most obvious benefit is that less exposure to staff. Also, I hear a lot that veterinarians owners are saying that the staff morale is much higher when they feel like the management is doing something to, promote less exposure for them, so safer workplace. Pregnant staff can continue participating in x-rays, especially like when they're leaving the room, and working with smaller animals that are not heavy. I also hear often that the quality is improved, because with hands-free, you really need to think. You don't just go in there, slap your animal, put your sandbags in. No, you have to look at the patient ahead of time, prepare the room ahead of time, put all the settings in the computer. So when you actually bring the patient, the experience for that animal is very short, comfortable, and they're back with their parents as soon as possible. So it's really requires thinking. So with that, a lot of the clinics that we've done the training, they find that the quality is actually much better because it does require a bit more thinking and preparing. And also with hands-free, you don't really need two people anymore, like with manual restraint. Manual restraint, you have one person in the back, one person at the front. With hands-free, as you can see in this video, you only need one person, and this is in a weak dog. So
yeah, and the whole thing of having better images is huge in radiology, right? Repeated imaging does cause like dose to people. So having a better image, it's not just about distance, but the quality of the images being better is huge.
One more thing I'll add, Lynn, is when getting started with hands-free, I mean, it's a new skill. It definitely takes much longer to take x-rays at the beginning. Over time, hospitals say that it's actually significantly faster using hands-free versus hands-on.
So what are some of the ongoing challenges and how do people address them?
So number one challenge I would say is misconception. So people, when they hear hands-free, like I said, they think that their animal is going to be left alone on the table. They're going to be able to jump off the table, break a leg, hurt themselves. It's a scary thought if you're unfamiliar with how it works and what hands-free looks like. Also, it's a change. It's a change from something that we've done always. And when we do training sessions, there's always some participants that they say, this is the way I've done it for 20 years. And how do you mentally, it's really hard to change that mentality, but this is why we say there's so many ranges to hands-free. It doesn't mean that you have to, run outside and hide under a lead box. No, it's about the gradual reduction. So it can be one person can stay in the room actually holding the animal, one person can leave the room, you can alternate. It can be putting sandbags like in this image here, and then taking a step back. The way that radiation works, like you explained, Lynn, it doesn't have to be very far. You don't have to be very far to see a significant reduction in your exposure levels. One thing that we sometimes recommend, especially when starting with hands-free, is you can get an area dosimeter and just put it at some place in the room, kind of thyroid level. And in that period, you will know how much scatter is reaching to that specific point in the room. And if you're seeing 0, then you know that that is a good place to go and stand when you actually take your exposure. You can also position it in a way that the patient can you can keep eye contact with the patient, you can keep talking to them, say you're a good boy or a good girl. And again, it's all about patient comfort and just reducing the exposure by increasing the distance, and any distance will reduce the exposure.
So is this being taught to vet techs as part of their imaging training?
Vet tech program, and I mean it's a very, like, we do so much. There's parasites, there's diseases. We definitely have something on radiation safety. We're taught about ALARA, but when I went to school, we didn't have as much focus on, let's talk about hands-free on awake patients. Let's talk about hands-free on very lightly sedated patients. So I would say it was lacking a little bit at the time. Now it is changing. I talk to students about this as well. And I know a few colleges that changed their program to have specific hands-free training. So it's definitely changing, but it's a very recent change.
Yeah, and we are so much creatures of habit. And as you've mentioned before, it's really difficult to change habits. So it's great if people are trained to do this right from the start. And then we don't have to try to change habits that we've had for years.
We're getting there.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Julia. And thanks for showing us the pictures to help explain what hands-free imaging looks like. That really helps in the video. We'll now take the questions from the participants from the Q&A, and there's some right in the chat room. And then as time permits, we will then open the floor if anyone wishes to ask questions directly. Or if you're somebody that works in the industry and wishes to make a comment or add your experience, please do. We can have a bit of a conversation, but let me go through the chat and what people have put in there. We'll get that first. And if there's questions we don't get to, we'll post the answer on the webinar page of our website, and we'll send a link to that page along with other resources to everyone once the video is processed, which will likely be tomorrow or Friday. So I'm just going to go through the chat and find comments and questions and read them out. The ones that are, it's nice to see everybody saying hello. Just a comment from Brian is that, oh, I lost my chat screen. I'm trying to make it bigger. Sorry about that. Just that Brian had mentioned that vets and chiropractors are the last places to switch from film to digital imaging, at least for large format devices. So that's information that Brian was able to bring to the table. So thanks for that. And a question from Brian, do veterinary x-ray systems typically have automatic exposure control, or do they still use manual techniques to set the exposure time and current? And automatic exposure control can dramatically reduce the beam on time when used properly, and digital imaging can mask overexposure since the image contrast can be adjusted. So do you mind commenting to that, Julia?
This is I mean, there are x-ray tables now that have kind of, you just put the size of the animal and it automatically sets the settings for you, but it's still like, it doesn't really change the need to handhold or not. I definitely see there's more sensitive plates that require a little bit less settings, so less exposure levels. But yes, there are tables that it is you just choose the animal and it's kind of automatically sets it for you. But I would say most stables, you still have to manually put in, kind of measure your animal, measure the body part that you want to go through, and then you put your numbers in the system.
So that would be like more modern equipment that not every veterinary office has yet.
Yeah, it just depends on the table and how old the x-ray table is, but it's a mix.
Okay.
But it's not really, when looking at manual restraint and hand holding, that part, it's not really relevant for the hand holding. The hand holding is specific for the patient staying in place for the image.
Lauren had asked, do the hands-free devices accumulate radioactive particles? I can comment on that, Julie can afterward, but no, X-rays at the energies that are used, which would be under 1 megaelectron volt, that they would not cause what's called activation. Activation is when a stable element becomes radioactive. That would not happen with these levels, the energies of these X-rays. That's typically with neutron radiation or very, very powerful X-ray beams. So not with these, that wouldn't be a concern. And I don't know if you have any other comment on that, Julia, or well, just leave that one and go to the next. So Marla had said that just a comment that she teaches her students hands-free. And unfortunately, when students go to their workplace, nobody's doing it. And they end up just following the crowd. And it's very frustrating from an instructor's point of view.
I can imagine. That's why, honestly, this is my full-time project because of that. I have been one of these students, and what I'm really pushing for is to have more radiation safety posters, just like very visual aid. You walk into an X-ray room, the first thing you see is radiation needs to be respected. This is what can happen to you. It will not happen now. It can happen in 30, 40 years if it happens. It's definitely missing. So a lot of what I do is pushing for that awareness, because the more people think about it, the more they talk about it, the more when they actually go take the x-rays, they might say, let's try do it this way. I speak at a lot of conferences. I work with Lynn, and it's a slow change, but compared to what it was 5 years ago, there is a fire that's there, and there will be, I think, big changes happening in the next 10 years when looking at imaging or radiography.
And I know myself, I come from public education where, you're taught something in teachers college and then going in, it's hard to be the young person going in, trying to bring in something new. I'm no longer the young person, but I remember what that was like. So just others from the meeting chat, Lothar had said an excellent practical application of ALARA. And Marla had said, as Julia said, I stress to them that even a little distance is better than crowding close to the animal. And baby steps.
Yeah, also Marla, sorry, Lynn, to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead. Comment on Marla's comment.
I had an instructor that actually did in her lecture. They did this. Well, they sent us because we did a talk with them, and they made the students write the number 75% on pieces of paper, and all the students had it out. And she took a picture and sent it to me, and that's to symbolize just to really reinforce them that even 1 meter away from the X-ray source can be up to 75% reduction. And if the students that start thinking about it this way, it's like, I only need to take 3 feet away from the X-ray table to reduce it by 75%. That's huge. So once you put that in their head, that it doesn't have to be very far to reduce the exposure. I also see changes in student behavior that way.
That's great. Joanne had asked, where can we see or purchase your positioning devices? We have that on the next slide. So we'll wait to do that one. And then Vivian is asking, is it a requirement for veterinary hospitals to have PPE in clinic? I've found some clinics are missing goggles, for example. Did you want to make a comment?
Mandatory, I mean, I know for Ontario, at least, I'm pretty sure it's a federal safety code. It is mandatory to have 2 sets of lead gloves, 2 sets of gowns, so that's the full body gowns, and 2 sets of thyroid shields, goggles, caps, other stuff. It's not mandatory. It is for now, it's optional. So not many hospitals will have goggles, but all hospitals will have thyroid gowns and gloves.
And just so people, we do have in that regulatory, it explains the other webinar, but all the x-rays in Canada that are under 1 MeV are regulated by the province, the territory, or if it's a federally regulated workplace, it's the Health Canada safety codes apply. And so you have to look to your provincial, territorial, or the labor code and the Health Canada safety codes for federally regulated workplaces. So it's a little different from place to place what is required. And it can vary quite a bit across from province to province. So with that, just looking at the time, I'd like to thank everyone that asked questions or made comments and came today. So that's all the time we have for the questions and answers. And if there's any other questions for Julia, I'm sure her information's on the next slide that she wouldn't mind, or you can send them to me as well at here at the Radiation Safety Institute of Canada, and I'll get in touch with Julia. So, and we will post any questions and answers that come up in the website as I get the video ready. So Julia, if here, I already said it's on the next slide. Do you mind letting people know how they can get in touch and where your website is?
So the website handsfreeexrays.com. We kept it simple, straightforward. You can call or email. We have a Facebook group. Again, it's a big community of RVTs and DVMs, assistants, anybody who's involved in X-rays, more than welcome to send questions. This is what I do, so this is what I'm here for.
Yes, and for those people, everybody that's here, you'll get an email from me with where you can access copies of the slides, and this slide will be in there. So if you happen to not get a copy down right now, that you'll have access to it there, and I'll have links as well in the email. So Julia, if you could summarize the takeaways for those here today or watching at a later date, what would they be?
So again, like I said, just make sure that you have something when you walk into the X-ray room to remind you to try hands-free. Make sure you have the tools needed to have hands-free. A lot of these can be made in-house. You lead by example. So once you start talking about or even trying hands-free, it will spark a discussion. Why are you doing this? Why do you think we should be doing this? Let's make a plan on how to do it. Positive discussion is essential because it's a change. It's scary. It's new. A lot of misconceptions are out there when talking about hands-free. So it's really important to keep it as positive as possible. It's possible also only if one staff member is interested in trying hands-free. Like I said, one person can stay holding the front limbs, but the back person can be replaced by a sandbag. They can leave the room. So there's so many ways to do hands-free, transition slowly into hands-free. It's all about just not setting yourself up for failure, taking baby steps, and reach out to us if there is any specific questions.
And you do training as well, like you have experts there that can help.
We do in-hospital training and virtual training as well.
Okay, thanks. So we hope that you found this webinar on hands-free imaging and veterinary practice informative. We really appreciate having you here, Julia, because you have that experience doing it both like what other people they have the same lived experience. They're doing that and they want to make a change, and you've gone through that yourself. So very much appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
For everybody, if you have any questions about any radiation safety topic, please feel free to contact us at the Radiation Safety Institute of Canada. We have a toll-free information service to support questions from employers, workers, and the public with respect to both ionizing and non-ionizing radiation safety. We also provide consulting services for those who might need support in developing radiation protection program related services, including radiation surveys. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us toll free at 1-800-263-5803. or by email at info@radiationsafety.ca. And that includes if you want to get in touch with Julia and you can't find the email, just send one to me as well. And you can also visit us on our website at www.radiationsafety.ca or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. So again, thanks, Julia. And just looking at the time, it's time to move on to our wellness break. And I'd like to thank everybody that was able to come today. I know that it's over people's lunch hour. Not everybody can stay for wellness, but we appreciate those who can. That we have here with us today, Charmaine Wong of Ji Hong Tai Chi and Qigong from Richmond Hill, Ontario. So Charmaine, are you there? I can't. All right, I'll let you take over.
Sure.
So
thank you, Lynn.
no problem. And again,
All
thank
right.
you, Leah.
All right. Now, like last time, let's see if I can share the music as a background. Okay. Not quite there yet. So Lynn, if you can give me permission.
Oh, I think I made you co-host. Oh, the other one. You have two.
Yeah, the other one. Sorry.
Okay. What are you called? Oh, there you are. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. I forgot about having two. There we go.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. Now, so thank you for having us back. And what we're going to do today would be to build up from what we learned last class, assuming that, as my understanding is, that most of you would have already attended last class. All right, so let's get off the chair again, and let's do some warm-up exercises first. We'll do the first exercise that we did last time again, all right? So first of all, you just place the hands in front of your waist area, fingers together, palms facing up. Then we're gonna stretch up. And take a deep breath in. And then relax the arms, release the hands, and come back down. Now remember, our feet are a little bit apart, about shoulder width apart. Let's do that again. Stretch up, take a deep breath in. Open. Now as you come down, we always like to call this sitting down because it's not just about bending the knees. Your behind should get back a little bit as if you are planning to sit down. All right, again, go up again, breathe in. So the arms are straight up to the ceiling. And then yes, you open, breathe out, and do a little bit of a sitting down. One more time. Stretch up. And down. Now this time we're going to add one more component to it. So when we get up, and as we stretch our arms towards the ceiling, let's lower our head backward a little bit and slightly look up to our hands. Then you can look back to the front and release the arms. Other components of the movement would be the same. So do it just one last time. This lowering the head backward is good, especially if you kind of look down to your computer all day. So this is kind of reversing. So look up, take a deep breath in as well. Look back to the front, relax and release the arms as you exhale. Okay. All right, so we'll finish that particular movement. Now let's do one more as a warm-up. This is actually one of the basic exercises for Tai Chi. We're going to do a little bit more of a challenging one this time, a little bit different from last time. That involves more of the lower body, which we're going to use today. So with the feet shoulder width apart again, open your arms sideways with the palms facing down, with the fingers slightly pointing towards the front, opening the arms like a big V shape. Bring the arms up and turn with the palms facing each other, fingers facing up. And then sitting down again as you lower the shoulders and elbows down, straight down. And then you continue to lower the hands down as you straighten the body back up. Again, open. I'm going to step back a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see my hands turning at the top with the palms facing up. Facing each other, fingers facing up. And then you sit down, lowering the elbows. And then further drop your hands as you straighten back up. Let's do that a couple more times. As you open your arms sideways, imagine they are being pulled out. So extend the arms and then extend the arms up and then come back down. Now, every time you come down, you sit down a little bit. That gives your knees a bit of warm up, your hip area as well. One last time. Okay, now we're going to work on what we learned last time, the 2 Tai Chi movements. The first one, if you can remember, that's called cloud hands. All right, so just in case, if you're not quite sure how we did that or you don't remember anymore, let's do a quick review. All right, so again, with your feet shoulder width apart, slightly further apart. Now this time, first of all, we're going to review the upper body. All right, now so bring your, I'm going to be your mirror image again. So bring your left hand up, the right hand, palm facing down. So we're going to move towards your left side. And then we're going to switch the hands. And then we're going to move back to the right side, to your right side. All right. Switch again. Move. The weight shifting is important. All right. And then switch the hands again and move. Now remember, the top hand, the palm is facing yourself, the bottom hand facing the floor. So now switch your hands and go to your left side. And also remember, the top hand is the direction that your body is moving towards. Switch your right hand on top so you move towards your right side. Just a couple more times. Go to your left. Switch hands and go back to your right. All right, now, as I promised last time, we're going to add our lower body this time. Now, I'm going to just quickly show you how it looks like. And in the meantime, while I'm showing you, if you can try to find some space where you can have kind of like 3 steps going each direction, right? So 3 steps over there, 3 steps back here. So try to see if you can find enough space. Now I'm going to show you how it looks like. So let's say I go this way. Now for cloud hands, the footwork is about stepping sideways. So generally that's how it looks like, all right? Not too difficult. All right, I'm going to do one last step. Okay, now, just an introduction of the names of the stances that we use in Tai Chi. First of all, it's the horse stance. A horse stance is like you're riding on a horse. So the 2 feet side by side, a little bit further apart, like shoulder width at least, or even more. And then you kind of sit down like that into a half squat position. This is what we call a horse stance, as if you're riding on a horse, sitting on the saddle, all right? Now let's practice a little bit of the bottom, the lower body first without the hands. So in the meantime, just find a place where your hands, the best place would be to put the hands on the hip, all right? Now, first of all, we just learned the mechanics of the move, walking sideways. Now let's say, again, on your mirror image, let's say you're gonna walk to, let's say to the left, all right? So it doesn't matter which side, we're gonna walk back the other side. So you're just gonna step, and bring the feet back together. Step. Now we're just doing a little bit faster than what we should be doing it for the first time. Okay, and then step. And then we step back. And every time when you put your feet back to closer together, you don't put them all the way together. You still maintain a bit of distance between them. And you basically try to maintain a little bit of a half squat position. All right, now this time we're going to do a little bit more slowly, doing the same thing. And you would find that when you do it more slowly, it's actually more difficult. So the main thing, the main challenge when you're doing it slowly is that you really have to shift the weight from one leg to another until you find a really strong foothold. And then you slowly pick up the other foot, slowly drop it. Sometimes we call it a catwalk. You place the feet down lightly as if it's a cat walking very quietly. You will find that it's actually a lot more challenging if you do it this way. All right, let's go back that direction. Again. And this is the way Tai Chi earns its name for being a very good exercise for balance. Because imagine you basically would be standing on one leg each time you shuffle your steps. So there would be a lot of practices as you move from one step to another of your balance, right? Okay, we'll just take a quick rest now. Now, we're gonna add our hands, upper body this time. How are we gonna do it? Now, let's say again, I'm moving from my right, your right to your left, moving this direction, all right? Now, if I'm moving this direction, as I reminded you earlier on, this hand has to come up. All right, so now let's just have a wider stance to begin with. And just move the weight all the way towards this leg, basically your left leg. Switch your hands and bring the other foot back to about shoulder width apart. And then we move back to the right side. Then we switch our hands again and step the other foot towards your left. And switch the hands and step the foot back to shoulder width apart. And move the weight to this side, your right side. Again, switch, step, switch, step, and shift weight. All right, now let's go to that side now. You can step, moving to that side. If your feet are too close together, now we're gonna switch our hands and step this direction. And then we move on to your left. Switch and step and shift weight. Switch hands and step and shift weight. Switch hands and step and shift weight. Switch hands and step. Now together. All right, like one more time. All right, so now go to your left again. Switch hands and step. Switch hands and step. Switch hands and step. One more step towards that side. Now the weight shifting is important. So every time you switch hands and step, then the weight shifts to that side. Very stable. Then you switch hands and step. All right, back to that direction. Last time. Shift to your right. Switch hands and step and shift back to your left. Switch hands, step, shift weight to your right. Switch hands, step, shift back to your left. Last time, switch hands, step, shift weight to your right. And then we're gonna finish, switch hands, and now you can actually come back to the middle and we'll just finish like that. All right, so in a typical form, especially in the yang forms, we normally would just go one direction, but for our practice purpose, we can go both directions so that we can train our brain to be more symmetrical, to be more coordinated. All right, now that was cloud hands. Last time, we also learned the parting of the wild horse's mane. The movement looks like this, right? If you remember, right? And then we go to the other side as well. Now you can follow me and try to practice just the upper body a little bit. Now, so start off with the weight on your left leg, and then your left hand is on top. Your right hand is at the bottom, palms facing each other as if holding a ball. And then as you face towards the front, you open the arms diagonally, all right? And then we go to the other side. The weight is on your right side, so the right hand is on top, left hand on the bottom, palms facing more or less each other, body slightly turned. Then as you turn back to face the front, you open those arms. One arm goes up, one arm goes down without the palms changing direction. One more time. Start off with the weight on your left, slightly body turn to the left. Open. Last time, the right side. Open. Okay, now the footwork with this parting wild horse's mane is a little bit more complicated, but we can still do kind of a first half of it. Now, and for that, we need to learn another stance, which is called the bow stance, B-O-W, bow as if a bow and arrow bow. So what it looks like is this. A bow stance is like there's a front leg to it. The front leg is like a bow, so you kind of put more weight onto it, a little bit bent in the knee. The back leg is the arrow, so it's kind of relatively straight. The front toes point to the front, the back toes point to the 45 degrees to the other side, all right? And then the feet, the width of the feet, you try to put them so that they're not really onto one line. You're not gonna be very well balanced that way. So you put them a little bit further apart, roughly about shoulder width apart, hip width apart as well. And it can be a right bow stance or a left bow stance. All right, so it's the same thing. Now I'm going to show you a side view. On the side, it looks like this. So the weight distribution between the front leg and the back leg is such that it's about 60 to 70% weight on the front leg and 30 to 40% weight on the back leg. And the body basically remains straight, right? So you don't lean or lean back, right? Lean forward or lean back. Okay, now, so just practicing the bow stance first. Now, first of all, I'm your mirror image again. So you turn your left toes out to 45 degrees. And then you move your weight entirely to your left leg. Pick up your right leg and step a little bit wider to the side as well as a little bit to the front with the toes basically pointing to the front. And then once you put the foot down, you move your weight towards the front foot so that the distribution is the 60-40 or the 70-30. All right, let's do that one more time on this side. Turn your left foot and pick up the right leg. You put the heel down first and then you slowly shift weight. Now make sure that you don't shift weight too much forward so that the knee goes beyond your toes. So you want to keep it a little bit back so that the knees are not going beyond the front toes. All right, now let's switch to the other side. Turn your right toes 45 degrees. Move the weight entirely to your right. Body as well, a little bit turning towards that side. And then you pick up your left foot, put down the heel, and then move the weight towards the front as the hip is squarely facing the front. One more time just on this side, and we're going to add our arms. Turn your right toes. The whole body turns towards that side. Move the weight onto entirely to that foot. Pick up your left foot, put the heel down, then shift weight and turn and square back to the front. All right, now we're gonna add our arms. All right, so let's start with the same side. Let's turn your left toes out. As you put your weight onto this side, your left leg, you put your left arm on top, your right arm at the bottom, holding that big ball, palms facing each other. Then we're gonna step our right heel forward. And as you move the weight to the front leg, you're gonna do what we just practiced. You open those two arms, a little bit more like diagonal. Into, this is called parting wild horse's mane. Now let's do that again. Turn, left toes. When you move the weight entirely onto your left side, you do a left hope ball, left hand on top. Right heel, put forward, a little bit wide enough to become at least shoulder width, wide. And then as you move the weight to the front, you spread those two arms. Let's try one more time to the same side. Turn. A reminder, not just the toes turning, the whole body slightly turns towards the left side, and then left hope ball, left hand on top, right foot, parting wild horse's mane. Okay, now let's do the other side. Turn your right toes. Move the weight entirely to your right side. Right hope ball, right hand on top. Left heel, forward. Move the weight, squaring the body and opening the arms. One more time. Turn your right toes. The whole body, hip, knee, everything facing a little bit to the 45 degrees to your right. Right whole ball. Heel down. Move the weight to the front leg and open. One more time. Last time. Turn. Right toes. Right whole ball. Step. Everything done slowly, continuously. All right. Okay, so I think that's the time that we have for today. Now we're gonna do one final thing, which is to cool down before you sit right back down. So what we're gonna do is, we're just gonna do something like last time. So turn your palms up. We just wanna slow down our heart rate. So bring the palms up, take a deep breath in, turn the palms back down, put the hands back down and breathe out. 2 more times. Turn. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last time. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay, so hopefully you find some benefits out of today's exercises. And if you have any questions, I can be here, but otherwise I'll turn it back to Lynn.
Thanks so much, Charmaine. We really appreciate having you here. And I think, that we have different types of movement breaks, but I do, just from having done the Tai Chi twice, I think it's a good way to get those stretches, to work out joints and things like that. And just, I can see that as you get into it longer, that it's a very peaceful way of getting a bit of movement into your day. So
yeah, very good.
Thanks so much. And again, if you want more information in the handout that I will put up on the website and the email I sent out, it will have information about Charmaine and Ji Hong Tai Chi. So thank you.